Today we're discussing this new 70-200mm f2.8 Mark II, which I can say is better in pretty much every way compared to its predecessor. But I'll show you some tests so you can decide if it's better enough to buy. Let's get undone. Gerald Undone. He's crazy. What's happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone and I run at 1.21 gigawatts. Alright, disclosure, Sony lent me this lens to make this review. I do not get to keep it, no money changed hands, and they don't get any input on this video's production or get to preview it before it's published. This video does have a sponsor though, and that's Storyblocks. So here's the deal. Sony's original 70-200 is one of the oldest in the mirrorless world, and it's starting to show its age. Since then, Canon, Nikon, and Panasonic have all released newer lenses that tend to perform better for video as well. So it was time for a refresh of this lens for Sony E-mount, and I was very interested to see how it performed for video because I'm interested in getting a lens in this focal range. I've also arranged for a photo shoot so we can test the photographic capabilities of this lens in a portrait scenario, but first, let's talk focus breathing. Sony has had a history of making quite a few lenses, especially their G Masters, with bad focus breathing, but I'm happy to report that this new lens offers significant improvements in this category. When racking focus over practical distances, the breathing is barely visible, and even when I racked all the way to minimum focusing distance, I was quite pleased with this lens's control over breathing. And speaking of that minimum focusing distance, not only is the maximum magnification similar whether at 70 or 200 millimeters, which is quite impressive, but it's also far closer than I was expecting at only 40 centimeters or 1.32 feet at 70 millimeters. The focus throw is still pretty short though, so manual focusing won't be as easy as on a cine lens, but luckily the response is completely linear, so you can repeat focus pulls confidently. And alternatively, the autofocus performance on this lens is fantastic. Another pleasant surprise, this lens is almost perfectly parfocal. Whether zooming from 70 to 200 or 200 to 70, the focus stays very sharp. Now, getting into the physical attributes of this lens, it's roughly the same size as the previous version, but the weight has been significantly reduced. They've simplified the optical formula and used more modern focus motors, allowing this lens to weigh 400 to 500 grams less than the Mark I. That's a pound of bulk removed from your setup, and you can instantly feel it. And despite that reduction in weight, it still maintains Sony's latest and greatest weather sealing to give you confidence in the field and adverse conditions. And they've also added a third stabilization setting for rapid movement. And to bring it up to speed with the other recent G Masters and to keep up the nods to video, they've also added a declickable aperture ring with an iris lock function. This combination of features makes this lens not only unique, but also the lightest lens in its class without sacrificing any performance, as it's actually sharper than its predecessor. And if you go off the MTF charts, it's actually sharper than the other competing 70-200s I mentioned earlier. Now, we'll take a closer look at sharpness in a minute, but before we do that, let's try some practical photographic applications and use this lens on a portrait shoot. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a very good portrait photographer, so I met up with my friend Lee Zavitz to take this lens for a spin and get his first impressions on it. But before we do that, I'd like to take a minute to tell you a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, Storyblocks. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you could really use some footage, but shooting yourself was either budgetarily or logistically unfeasible? Well, Storyblocks has you covered with an impressive collection of stock footage covering a wide range of subjects with unlimited downloads and 4K video. They're also amply supplied with backgrounds, overlays, and After Effects templates, and the interface is easy to use and navigate, and the clips are royalty-free for both personal and commercial use, so you can use them as much as you want, wherever you want. So if you think you could take advantage of a fantastic library of quality stock footage and effects, check out Storyblocks using the link in the description below. All right, let's go meet up with Lee.
You like that?
Perfect.
Firm.
All right, we'll shoot a little.
Yeah, we'll shoot
a little opener here.
70 to 200 f2.8 G Master OSS Mark II. Mark II. We're gonna shoot with Clarissa today. Ooh, this zoom is smooth. We're getting a little bit of that tree in there, which is nice. 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna come around a bit so there's a little bit more sun in your face. Actually flip around so you're looking off your back shoulder. Your back shoulder. There you go. 3, 2, 1. That's at 135. We can go even closer to 200. This is a real close headshot though. I think I'd prefer to do the closer headshots with some trees behind you though. Oh, we got some lens flare action. This is a good test to show the lens flare. Oh, I forgot to say, we're shooting on the A1. So it should have the best autofocus that we can get out of this bad boy. We will do some tracking stuff on the road here, but so far, it's good. Yeah, just keep moving around in there. Yo, the shutter on this camera is so quiet. This is my first time shooting with the A7 or the A1. That's nice. Hold that again when you were looking down. I love this rolling hill action. There's some sun behind you there, which is really nice. So I was trying to figure out how to adjust the aperture because It's actually on the lens this time, so the updated version has an aperture ring, but it's also a declicked aperture ring. Nice smooth declicked aperture ring. And we also have iris lock here as well. So that's something new on this lens that wasn't on the older lens.
All right, so Lee, quick first impressions. How's the new weight and the feel, you know?
So obviously the first thing I noticed when I picked this up is how light it is.
How's it balanced on the A1?
It feels good, actually. I'm rocking in one hand, so.
Hey Lee, why are you holding the Ninja like that?
Gerald forgot the adapter to go on the camera.
I sure did.
All right, so we're gonna do some high-speed continuous shooting. Nice. Beautiful. All right, now we're gonna go 200 millimeter. Get the Manny Ortiz. Nice. So I'm just gonna show the focus, like how fast it is. Like it's instant. You don't even feel the lens shift focus either, which is crazy.
And I can't hear it.
Yeah, there's no sound. You can move around in there.
So the older ones, the Mark ones, they were using like a circular, like a rotational style focus. These, as you already said, are the linear XD. Same ones that you're gonna get in 400 mil, 200 to 600, like all the big zooms. And so they're almost like floating on rails, and they're just kind of like, yeah. So they're silent and they're fast.
I want to try one in the red stuff though, so we got to go this way to get that. Where are we? We just like went from the country to like the apocalypse. Nice, let's try one more of those. I'm gonna get a little closer. 3, 2, 1, go. Nice. Look at that nice smooth red background.
Is it creamy?
It's pretty creamy.
Now, something I was looking to do with this lens was potentially replace my 100-400. Now, I like this lens a lot, but I don't love the variable aperture for video, and sometimes I wish I could just work in that 85 to 135 millimeter range. So I wanted to test this new 70-200 with the 2x teleconverter to see if it would make for a decent 140 to 400 millimeter lens with a constant 5.6 for when I wanted a similar experience to my 100-400, but with that added versatility of being able to shoot 70-200 at f2.8 whenever I wanted by simply removing the teleconverter. So if we look at the sharpness tests, we can see that this new 70-200 millimeter is incredibly sharp at both ends of the focal range and might even be the slightest bit sharper than my 100-400, which was already class leading. But when we add the 2x teleconverter, we do lose a bit of sharpness, sadly, and the image is a tad darker with a bit of a color cast. Now, the 1/3 of a stop of transmittance loss and color shift can be easily fixed, so it just comes down to whether you're willing to accept that slight reduction in sharpness. I think personally for me, I'd rather have the versatility of the 70-200 with an optional teleconverter, and I'm okay with that reduction in sharpness, but as usual, anytime you introduce more glass, you do lose some image quality, and the issue worsens a bit out to the edge. Chromatic aberration is increased as well when using the teleconverter. You can see extra fringing laterally when attaching it, but when using this new 70-200 millimeter without the teleconverter, the chromatic aberration control is fantastic. Barely any noticeable fringing even across the most challenging longitudinal scenes. If you really go hunting for it, you can create some Loca in extreme backlit situations with the lens at 200 millimeters set to f2.8. But if you stop down to f5.6 or even zoom out towards 70 millimeters, it completely disappears. And I haven't been able to create any distracting Loca in any practical shooting situations. So suppose if you needed the sharpest possible image at 400 millimeters, you'd have to buy a dedicated lens. But keep in mind, this is also a 50 megapixel still image comparison. In 4K video, I could barely tell the difference. Speaking of which, here's some 4K video of me walking at the camera to see if the autofocus tracking was consistent when adding the teleconverter. And as you can see, not only is it the same as the 70-200 without the converter, but it's also the same as the 100-400, and it's much harder to see that sharpness reduction in this scenario. So again, for video, this lens is excellent. By the way, there isn't a new teleconverter for this lens, just the standard one, so if you already have one, you can still use it. Bokeh on this lens is very good, smooth and consistent orbs with minimal artifacts. At the shorter focal lengths, you can see some faint onion ring and a bit of that outer membrane look, but you really have to accentuate the shot to see it. There's minimal cat's eyeing in the corners, and because of the 11-bladed circular aperture, the autofocus areas still look great even when stopped down. I'd say the only weakness this lens has, if you want to call it that, is that the flare control isn't the best I've seen from Sony. There is some noticeable ghosting and reflective artifacts across the frame with a modest reduction in contrast. Nothing major, but it exists. But the lens does come with a well-constructed hood that eliminates flare completely. This is the case that it comes with, by the way. And this is one of the new modern design hoods. So pop that on, and it has the slot on the bottom that you can use for adjusting a filter if you want. By the way, 77mm filter threads on this lens, same as the 100-400. Overall, I think this is a fantastic lens and a worthwhile upgrade. If you already have a 7200 that's working well for you, you probably don't need to rush out and buy this one, but I don't think you'll be disappointed if you did, as this is easily the best 7200 I've ever used. But if you're like me and you've been holding out on getting a 7200 for Sony E because you didn't like your options and maybe you wanted something more video focused, I think the wait is over and I'm definitely going to be adding this lens to my arsenal. And with a 2x teleconverter, I feel comfortable selling my 100-400 and having this lens do both jobs. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video entertaining, or at least helpful. And if you did, make sure to leave the old thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But if you did not find this video helpful or entertaining, try setting the playback speed to 75%. All right. I'm done.